Long Gone Days is an RPG released by Barra, centered around the story of Rourke, a soldier of the Corps who chooses to stand against the oncoming, unavoidable war, and his reflections on both his actions that he has taken and those that he must take to make up for his past. As the game nears completion and the systems are in place, I feel this is a good time to look at this intriguing RPG with an interesting balance of stories, side missions, and the willingness to step away from random encounters and embrace the more impactful and purpose-filled battles that are integral to the story. This balance also allows for an interesting battle mechanic related to character morale, which serves a number of roles, ranging from being your character's mana to a buff and debuff system based on high and low morale states, and instead of ethers or mana potions, it is restored or diminished outside of battle by your character's decisions. Since Long Gone Days is exceptionally story and decision driven, we should probably start there. Overall, the writing is what I would call good enough. It's not going to win awards for dialogue, but it is easy to understand and has a solid overarching narrative and message, so it's about what you'd expect from a modern indie RPG. If the story continues as it is, I can see myself having a lasting memory of the scenes rather than the words used, and the characters rather than their quotes. The way this type of story-first approach shines in this type of RPG is that whenever you're being chased, you fight the soldiers who catch you. When you're defending a town, you fight the drones and soldiers that came with the attack. And once they're beaten for good. And how you spend your resources in one battle directly impacts just how prepared you will be for the next. This lends to a lot more permanence to your decisions, where in other games you may feel like you're just making it to the next save point, so you know there's a safe place to spend a bit more freely. This is amplified both in good and bad ways by the morale system we mentioned earlier. If you save your morale for the tougher fights, you'll have far more to work with, and if you squander your morale early, you'll struggle against bosses. This means that sometimes you may just spend yourself into a corner where you will struggle or even fail to beat a boss with the resources you've saved. This is one reason I would most definitely float at least 2 save spots with this game, one at the start of an area and then use the second one to save as you progress through it. That way you always have the ability to mulligan and start over, just in case. Though, after you learn the combat system, this will likely become a little less frequent, since there's quite a bit of flexibility even to the attacks that you don't use resources on, since you can aim for different body parts, with different effects. For example, on human targets, the torso is easiest to hit, but well armored. The arms can disable an enemy for a turn, but it's not guaranteed. And shooting the head does amplify damage, but it's also got a higher chance to miss. And many of the abilities you have do have item or attack counterparts, but you have a far more limited supply of these individual items. Now overall, while I think this is a good game worth trying out, I do want to point out something that fell a little bit short of expectations. Since while the combat is well balanced, the sniper sections break up that pattern nicely, and the story is intentional and enjoyably weighted at the appropriate times. The side quests leave a little bit to be desired though. This is mostly because most of them, so far at least, felt like find and fetch quests, and while they added to the story on different levels, it usually wasn't too much comparable to the amount of time spent running around to get them all completed, but you do kind of still want to do them for your morale or item bonuses that you can get from this. But outside of that little flaw, I enjoyed my time with the early access version of this game, enough so that I'm looking forward to the finished version in a few months' time. As far as what that experience will be worth, it really depends on how much you get from story-driven games. So if you're looking for just a basic RPG, I would say wait for a sale. But if you're looking for a good story, this game definitely is worth the current asking price of $15, maybe even a bit more.